Tim, your piece from Honduras was very interesting because you traced back what happens to migrants who are rejected, and then they have to go back to where they came from, and what happens then. Because we tend to think about them either on the move or in limbo, and very little attention is usually paid to actually people who have to go back, and then they become targets. Can you talk a little bit about what you found about these returning migrants?
I mean, to me, it was I'm almost heartbreaking. I mean, it was heartbreaking in some instances. I mean, this is their home. They've fled for whatever reasons. The people we focused on, both of whom had been threatened by the gangs that control large parts of Honduras. And then they go home and they're sent back, and the U.S. puts them on a plane and they're dumped off at the airport, and it's just the same thing again. And I mean, the couple we focused on, who's the woman was pregnant. She and her husband tried to go to make a better life in the States after they were shaken down by the gangs, sent back, and then her husband disappears, and she gets a note saying, "Don't look for him." And she knows exactly what that means, because you just don't. You don't even go into their neighborhoods. I mean, when we went into the gang neighborhoods at night, the only time we could go in was with police if they were responding to a shooting or something like that. I mean, the gangs completely control those places.
And are they more prey because they're seen as maybe they have more money because they managed to get themselves to the border and now they're back? Are they?
Right. These people, they're hustlers. And I say that in the right sense of the word. They hustle. I mean, these are people who are trying to figure out a way to get around a system where the government has basically abandoned them to one of these gangs, whichever gang controls their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so they're willing to figure out a way out. So if they come back, the gangs know, okay, maybe something happened that they got thrown out, but they've probably, if they don't have money, they're going to figure out a way to get it. And in some ways they're right, because these are the kind of people who figure out how to make a life in a situation that's just terrible. But it's just the degree of brutality is just incredible. I mean, my hotel was right across the street from the San Pedro City Hall, and there were policemen in body armor all the time, like basically ringing the city hall. I mean, every once in a while, things would get normal. There would be like dancing for old people in the square, and then everyone would just disappear. I mean, because you don't live there like a normal person. I mean, you know that the gangs are there. Even if you're 20 feet from City Hall, you know that the gangs are watching you.
I remember a few years ago, an AP reporter, I forget his name, he won an OPC award for a series of stories he did in Honduras. I remember he had written like a first person at the end of the package about what it was like for him. I think he was from there when he had a family. He said, if my phone rings and I'm somewhere, I can't go outside on the sidewalk and talk because somebody might come grab my phone or, put a knife to my throat. And I remember thinking like this level of danger, it's like a war zone.
I mean, the thing is that it's actually better now. Like, I mean, when he won his OPC, it was even worse. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I spent a lot of time covering wars, and I was, in a lot of ways, felt more ill at ease there than I did in Liberia or Sierra Leone, where I kind of felt like I knew where the lines were. Right. You knew when you were crossing from a safe zone into an unsafe zone. Mm-hmm. You can't tell the difference between when you drive from a Mare 18 zone to one of the rival gang zones. You can't tell. Everybody knows. But if you're an outsider, you don't know. And being right on that border between those two gangs is the worst place to be. And it's an ugly situation. And for these people, it couldn't be any worse.